Tea time with E. Hello, YouTube. Welcome back to my channel, Elaine's Corner, where we talk everything health, wealth, and life. I am so excited because I have some of my favorite people with me for this tea time. I have my sisters, Chioma and Ellen.
Round of applause, round of applause.
As you can see, we're obviously doing this conversation over Zoom because we're in a pandemic and we're also in different states. So, ladies, can you just kind of introduce yourself and just, let the people know what y'all do? Bride prices are coming. They're going up. Talk about you.
Hi everyone. My name is Chioma Jofor. I currently reside in the state of Michigan. Currently, I work at the Berrien County Health Department as a grant coordinator for various grants, and I'm all about everything public health.
Yes.
Hello, YouTube. My name is Ellen Bungu. I work in Kalamazoo as a behavioral health consultant at a local clinic.
Ooh, okay, queens. So, y'all, it is Black History Month. I'm still trying to figure out if this video will come out this month or next month, but let's just focus on the now because it's Black History Month. And I just feel like as healthcare workers, I just wish I learned more about Black pioneers in healthcare. Um, I feel like in nursing school, I only learned about Sojourner Truth, and it was like one line that she was an abolitionist, fought for women and slave rights, and she was a nurse, and that's all we touched about her. But as a Black healthcare professional, have how has your experience been, I guess, learning about Black pioneers? Did you feel like you guys learned about pioneers in your healthcare field or mm-mm?
Chima, you want to start?
Don't we end up with? Definitely not. Definitely not. When you learn about the fathers of public health, they were definitely old white men. Yeah, so definitely did not. But one thing that I'm fortunate about in my field, it's probably one of the few industries that recognize and boldly states it, like that there are disparities in health amongst the Black and Brown community. So even though it's not like we're not reading it in history books or we're not seeing like about the pioneers, like in the most recent times, like they definitely recognize, and if you could see it during this COVID thing, when we were seeing a lot of Black and Brown communities being affected, you saw a lot of public health agencies coming out and saying that racism is a public health issue because it's something they've known for a very, very long time, and they've been screaming into the dark for a long time. And finally, around this time is when we saw, they were able to, like, yes, this is what we've been saying all along. Racism is a public health issue because it affects it brings about different disparities. So while I didn't learn about any Black pioneers, I did have the fortune of being able to read textbooks and like, yeah, disparities affect minorities and Black and Brown communities.
Yeah. Wow. Ellen?
Nothing jumps to mind immediately about like learning about social workers, Black social worker pioneers. I know there are some, and I feel like as Chioma was talking, I was really thinking, and I was like, yeah, I probably didn't do enough due diligence to like do the searching on my own. I took what we learned in school, and that was kind of it. But there is also, just like with public health, there is also this stigma with mental health in the Black community. And I feel like just from the things that I've heard from people here and there, people were just coming into their homes and taking their kids out, and that was their idea of like social workers. So then when it comes to advocating for their mental health, that's the picture that they have. So it's not necessarily a most welcomed profession. And so it's unfortunate, but that's what I see sometimes.
That's heavy. That's very, very heavy.
Yeah.
Do you feel like in your career now, learning about Black pioneers is something that you want to basically take into your own hands? Like this is something that you just kind of had to go out and just find and just be inspired by these people on your own. Does that make sense?
I think, especially more recently, even as recently as this week, I feel like it's become clear that I need to, because especially Black men in social work, or in the mental health profession in general, because they're the least likely to be the ones to seek out help. And so to be able to say, like, here are these like amazingly strong Black men who devoted their careers to making it possible for you to then feel okay to reach out and get help if you need it, I think that's important. So I feel like I need to, moving forward from here, do more research and do more work to educate myself.
Shoma, is there anything you want to add?
I would be in agreement that pioneers kind of give us a role model to look at. And I know, like you said, things about you guys learned about like Sojourner Truth, that one line, or growing up you hear about Harriet Tubman, and not to say the work that they did was like wasn't important or things like that, but sometimes it's thinking like man, it's a role model. It feels proud that me and Harriet Tubman share the same skin color, but when you hear about the things that she went through and the things that she did, I'm like, I cannot live up to that standard. Like me, I was not gonna be the one running through to the north. Like, but it would be nice, like also like in this present time, these are Black public health professionals who made a pathway in public health. And like, you know what? They did it like so.
You kind of, was it just me or
no? You're breaking up there.
We're breaking up.
I mean, it was fine on my end, but anyway. But just people that in present day that you can look up to, like, because we all need role models, whether we like to admit it or not. It's nice to aspire to somebody.
Ooh, yeah. Okay, so looking through history, y'all, we know that the Black population has been exploited and just experimented on. And there's just a lack of trust between the Black community and healthcare. What do you think we can do to mend these bridges?
I feel like the lack of trust, because one thing with these vaccines, people like to bring up is the Tuskegee experiments and things like that. And what really we need to get to the root of why that was a bad issue. And it was lack of transparency. It was hiding the truth. So we as healthcare professionals and healthcare industries need to be open and raw about all of our processes, even the ones that we don't have all the answers to, like, hey, this is something that we're working on, we're trying to figure that out. And then also ask for community input as we're trying to figure out that answer. I feel like those are the ways that we can, like trying to garner trust. And I think one thing my supervisor says is like public health moves at the speed of trust. Right now, a lot of things that are happening, trying to get the Black community in is very reactive instead of trying to work to build that bridge. So if things don't happen right away, don't be upset about that. Trust is going to take time, but at the end of the time, if you take that time to build that relationship, you will have gained a relationship that lasts a long time. Not, oh, I got you to come and take the vaccine today, and then now you just go about your merry way. So I think it's something that it's a slow process, but it's necessary to build that. Because think about it. You've ever been betrayed by somebody or somebody you thought was there to help you. If they came back the next day and was like, oh, I got this candy bar you really like, you're going to, like, even if you take it reluctantly, doesn't mean you're going to keep coming back to them. No, but if they take the time to build that relationship with you, and then finally, at the cusp of that, they're like, oh, I also brought you their favorite candy bar. Like, you're gonna appreciate this more because this person actually took the time to get to know me and get to know where I'm hurting and provided the solutions I was looking for.
Ooh. Okay. Okay. Alice, sorry, that just wow.
Yeah. I think more education, more than just like, hey, this is what happened that, some years back, but then also making it current and applicable. Because I feel like sometimes in school you hear about stuff happening in history and they just leave it as if it happened only that one time in history. And then you kind of forget and think, oh yeah, things are resolved. But I think showing more current instances where that ideology may have been perpetrated again in a different way, and showing like it's not just this one way that we can damage those kind of relationships, and then just walking the walk. Like, don't just say like, we're here to look out for your health and well-being. Like, your actions need to show it. So that means creating diversity in clinics, making sure that when people walk in, they can see themselves represented, not just in the cleaning staff, but there are doctors who look like me. There are nurses who look like me. There are social workers. There are public health officials who look like me. I think creating that space where you don't just walk in and feel like, whoa, I'm outnumbered. Like, will anybody here really take the time to get to understand what I'm going through? I think that's important.
It's so important for patients and staff members.
Right.
I feel like, my first hospital that I worked at, there were only three-ish black nurses on our shift, on our floor.
Yeah.
And then I came to Houston, Texas, where we had black CNOs, black floor managers, a black nursing director. A majority of shifts that I worked were all black nurses. You know what I'm saying? So I'm here thinking like, man, like this is beautiful. This is beautiful to me because I have coworkers that I relate to. And then I've had patients tell me, I'm so glad you're my nurse because you understand. Like, I'm so glad because I feel like you're going to listen to me and you're going to hear me and fight for me. And I don't think I truly understood how much that really meant until I was a little bit more seasoned in my profession and I actually saw some disparities and how terrible those disparities were. And especially in the Black community, and we see how, Chioma, you were saying, even with vaccines, how the Black community, I think their rates are pretty low with getting the COVID vaccine. Do you think that the Black community isn't getting vaccinated because of lack of access to vaccinations or lack of trust?
I think definitely in seeing it in Barron County, it is a mix of both. It's right now around the country, if you look who's getting vaccinated, it's a disproportionate amongst the rich and the poor. The rich have the connections. The rich are able to go leave work. They're able to look working jobs. They're able to look at their phone and, hey, I got an email notification. Let me tell my boss I can leave tonight now and get a vaccination. Whereas somebody who's working at McDonald's or working at something lower may not have that, can't have their phone on the floor, don't have the phone to access even access email on their phone or anything like that. And they're missing out. Like, we send out mass notifications like, hey, we have all these slots to fill, and someone will get it and insert with their little circle, share with their little circle, and then you find out the many clinics we were having is mostly Caucasians, and it's not even because I'm not putting it out there, but it's just privilege that is coming up. And one way we've had to combat it was like literally having clinics in these Black areas where we're only calling Black people to come and get this vaccine, only calling people in these census tracts to come and get this vaccine, because we know with the normal way of communication, they are being missed. They are like, they do not have the privilege that others have to go ahead and get that, to share, or to have know somebody that knows somebody in higher circles who will illegally share them the vaccine. You know what I'm saying? Or they don't have jobs they can leave in the middle of the day, where bosses maybe understand that, hey, this person needs to go get their vaccine. I definitely think it is there is a lot of mistrust in the Black community as well, but I feel like a lot of people, when they see the disproportionate, my words are failing me, it's been a long week, but when they see the disproportion, they say things like, oh, it's because they're hesitant. The funny thing is, they're not hesitant. They know that they want the vaccine too. They just want somebody to actually break things down to them, communicate to them in a way that they understand, communicate in a way that in channels that they are going to receive it. We know Black people respond more, are huge in the church, and what they're going to do is whatever their pastor do. Like, especially as Africans, we all know that they be worshiping the pastor. So if you don't have something that they're, oh, I have a leader of faith that got it, a lot of them are not going to go. Once pastor so and so gets the vaccine, you're gonna see droves. Why? Because you took the time to figure out the community strategies that strikes them the most. And I think a lot of time and I feel like a lot of times we're just like, oh yeah, they don't have access, they don't have internet, they don't have this. Baby, like, they have all that stuff, but are you communicating to them in a way that it gets to them? Like, are you communicating to them as if they're their target audience? I feel like we all, those billboards like McDonald's, all of them, they know, they study their target audience and they cater their ads and they cater the messages to that target audience. But if we just cater our messages about come get vaccine to just that typical population, it's only going to get to the white people. So I feel like we need to be careful. It's like, oh, they're hesitant to ski. Like, yes, there's some that do that, but there are a lot of people who simply aren't getting vaccinated because they don't know, and the communication strategies are not being put in place that targets them. And I step off my soapbox.
Al, what do you think?
I agree. I think as she was talking, I was flashing back to, I've had maybe a handful of African American patients come through and we're talking and we end up on the conversation of COVID, and I bring up the vaccine and they're like, oh no, I'm scared. Like, aren't you scared? And I'm like, well, I got the vaccine. And they're like, oh, really? And I'm like, yeah, I got the vaccine. I tell them, yeah, I had a little bit of side effects, kind of those normal ones, but like, I think it was worth it. And I go ahead and I tell them why. And the ones that I've talked to, they're kind of like, oh, okay, maybe I'll go get it. But it was just like, just a matter of sitting down and talking to them and telling them like, hey, yeah, I got it. And this is why. And answering their questions and some of their, their fears about it. And they've kind of been like, oh, okay, maybe I will get it. And then I give them the number. So yeah, I agree with what Chima was saying, but on a shorter soapbox.
No, I completely agree. I definitely think it's a mix of both.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's one of just the downfalls of healthcare. It really is.
Right.
We as healthcare professionals and as healthcare and as a whole, we just have to find ways to fill those holes, because like you were saying, target your audience. You know exactly how to get them. You do. Like, that's the truth. If McDonald's can get you to come to McDonald's, we can get you to come in for a physical, or come, just to come in and be seen.
Right.
2020 was a rough year for everybody, y'all. It was a rough year for everybody. But I think it was just such a rough year for healthcare professionals, not only because we're fighting this pandemic, but because a lot of racism was being brought to light. Granted, we're here like, y'all just now realizing this, but with like the Black Lives Matter protests and like all of it, how was it for you guys being a Black healthcare professional? Because I know with me, there were days when I had nothing in me. I really had absolutely nothing in me to give to my patients. And it was hard because I had to go take care of patients who don't even care about me, essentially. Like, I had to go take care of these patients that were like, Black Lives Matter is essentially the same thing as the KKK, and like, so how was that for you guys?
Ellen, don't eye me. Go first.
Hi, can I gather my thoughts, please?
Thank you. Be gathering that.
um, so I know here in Kalamazoo, we hit a bunch of protests, and it got, there was like 1 week where it got kind of bad, where like there was curfew, so we had to like leave work early and be in our places by a certain time. Um, I'm trying to think about interactions I had with patients or coworkers, and there was nothing overtly hostile towards me, I will say. I think there were certain patients who were just kind of a little more standoffish, or maybe a little bit more careful with their words when I was talking with them, or maybe just like one word answers to get like the visits over with. There was a couple who made like inferred to like, oh, people are making this a bigger deal than it is, and some of them you could tell like, if I try and react to that statement, like this is gonna like, it's gonna end up bad. So then for some of those, I was just kind of like, okay, found a way to like end the visit and send them on their way. But like you could tell like there was not going to be any sort of like open-mindedness to countering that statement. So I don't know. Yeah, that's kind of how it was for me.
For me, I feel like I was on a kind of on a roller coaster of emotions. Fortunately, my supervisor and like the admin most of the admin that I at my work, they're super woke. I don't believe in inviting people to the cookout, but I believe they would have been invited to the I really hate that. Well, that's a topic for another day. I hate that invitation to the cookout. But I believe they would have been invited to the cookout, whatever. And so they are very woke, and they were very vocal about like, the wrongs, whatever. But sometimes it just felt like I would wake up some days, I'm like, man, I just want to be Black in peace. Like, why do I have to have an opinion? I don't come to my office and start talking about this and this white people, they're doing it. And I'm like, Sharon, you're white too. Okay. So you're like, I don't have answers to give you, Sway, because I don't have the answers, Sway. Like, I was just like, man, like I would purposely avoid people, and because I did not want to talk about it. And then I go on social media and I'm like tired because I'm like, I'm seeing this everywhere. And the thing about, I love the Black Matters movement. I love it, but I'm a person of answers. So like I loved when I was good at math. I like reaching 1 + 1 = 2. Like I like seeing the answer at the end, but it just felt like there were just no answers, and it just felt really, really frustrating. And so I'm not gonna lie, like I was burnt out, and I just kind of was just going through the motions. I was just numb. I did not want to talk about it. I didn't like, social media was exhausting. You go to work, they want to talk about it. And of course, public health loves to talk about health disparities. So it's always in your face. But then recently I noticed a really interesting phenomenon that has been happening to me. I don't know if I didn't notice it before, but it's like, so working all these clinics, vaccine clinics, we get your vaccine so we can stop standing outside in the cold trying to get y'all your vaccine. Shameless plug. I just noticed, and I don't know if this happens to you, but like then there's white people who are just overly nice to you, and it's like, yo, this is because I'm Black and you're trying to get like to cure your white guilt. Like I would have police officers like, hey, sweetheart. I'm like, bro, like, just call me. My name is Shion. Like, you can just call me ma'am. Like, or like you would leave and they make sure to like tap my arm, and I'm like, yeah, you don't have to do that. Like, I'm not like, I'm okay. Like, we've been dealing with this for centuries, and I didn't die. You won't kill me today. Like, right? Like, just be normal. And so, like, I've lately been noticing that where people are just overly nice and calling on your, like just trying to ask questions and be superly in your face, and I'm like, yeah, but it feels fake. this feels fake as hell. I would rather you go back to when I was walking on the sidewalk and you went to the other side than the fake stuff, because it's like you're calling me sweetheart today, but then I turn on the TV and I see people who look at me who are being gunned down. Like, so where was the sweetheart mentality then? Like, so I'm just right now I'm just kind of I'm still kind of numb, but I'm just kind of rolling my eyes. That's the kind of things that I'm like really noticing, and as we're doing these clinics, and I've talked with my coworkers. My posse at work is predominantly white, so that's a topic for another day. That's growth. We'll do another segment of Chioma's growth.
Welcome to another episode of Chioma Makes White Friends.
So like, I was like, yo, I asked them, like, do people be calling you sweetheart and touching you and stuff? And they're like, and like one of my coworkers, she's like, to be honest, it's probably because you're Black and they feel guilty. And I'm like, that makes it super awkward. Because then it doesn't feel genuine, and you're just trying to be sickeningly sweet, especially when it comes from a police officer. Sir, just tell me to have it. You do not have to call me sweetheart and hun and babe and all, like, stop. And then last, I'll end with this. Like, Thursday, I worked a clinic, and then I actually felt anger for the first time. And it was because one of my coworkers, he's kind of upper management, and so we have volunteers that come to help our clinics, trying to get the community support, whatever. And I guess one of the persons, she was like a police officer. I don't know what district or what city she was in, but I'm standing like 2 feet away, and they're having this huge conversation about defunding the police and just going on and on. But people don't know what they're saying when they see defund the police, because if we defund the police, there's going to be chaos. And like, how are we gonna, if we weren't getting paid, how would we even help with the the protests? And then, talking about Chicago PD, like they're mad, they're diverse and everything like that, but people don't see that, and and I just felt myself feeling angry. And I was not even angry at because at the end of the day, it's free speech. You're free whatever you want to talk about, go ahead. But it's like the fact that you didn't even have you saw me standing right next to you, and you thought it was an appropriate conversation to have, regardless of what my feelings may be, regardless if I've been impacted by that kind of stuff. But you were just loudly having that conversation in my presence, and I had not. If I had reacted then, I would have been looked like I was a crazy person. If I had been told them, like, yo, you guys need to shut up, because that's like, we do not need, why are you talking about that? That affects me in a different way. So I just felt anger, because the truth about being a Black healthcare professional, being a Black professional, is that you cannot be yourself. Okay, there are things that are happening, and we still have to get up and go to work and pretend that we are okay, because if we react, then we're gonna be labeled as crazy. Or if we react, we're being, I get told, why don't you just take a day off? I don't need a day off. I need my 40 acres and a mule. Like, I need my reparations, Sharon. So that I think was just really heavy. Like, having to see all of that, then wake up in the morning, put on your professional face, and then go to work. When people are asking, there's, oh yeah, I did see that on the TV, and yeah, that verdict was bad, and hopefully we'll get them next time. But deep inside, you're broken. Like, I just had a breakthrough. Because remember I said I was numb in the beginning. Now these are my real raw. Like, I feel like I wasn't numb. I was having to fake it through the whole time.
Yes, because you were. Because here's the thing, like you said, this cannot come out in the workplace. If this came out in the workplace, you would be sent home, possibly suspended for what? For just feeling how you're feeling. And it's exhausting having coworkers come up to you asking you questions about the racism that is being unrevealed.
Your take on
You're being
what's your take on the thing? Yeah.
Through this whole time period. Like, I am not the spokesperson for the African American diaspora. Like, I am not. So stop asking me what you can ask Google. Like, exactly. you don't need to, like, I'm hurting. You don't need to come and like, oh yeah, how does it feel being Black right now?
Right. You don't write a book about white tears and white guilt? No, I don't want to read that. I want you to get out of my office. But that's
I apologize for one time, like, I called your hair like a Brillo pad. This is not the time. Like, I'm not thinking about you right now. If I'm being honest, I don't care about you right now.
I remember there was we were in a briefing, and somebody had talked about like just one of the higher up admin, like they were talking, and they're like, oh yeah, this person, you have a lot of tasks, do this, do this, do this. And somebody made a comment and responded was like, wow, you're really being a slave driver to the person. But I didn't even hear it. I didn't even hear it. And I think I could also get used to just letting things like just go over my head. I was like, so then they came to my office and she's like, I just really want to apologize for using the term slave driver in your presence and did it. I'm like, this is the most awkward conversation because I didn't even hear you. And second of all, like, I'm not gonna say that I would want people to making slave remarks in my presence, but at the same time, I'm also like, I don't want to feel like you have to walk around eggshells around me. Like I get that if you or somebody says, oh, they give you one that you're being a slave driver, I wouldn't feel like, and this is me personally, I wouldn't feel a type of way because I'm like, yeah, I could get what with like the joke that was there. So I also feel like there's also that thing of like, okay, now they feel they can't say anything around us, and it's like walking around eggshells, and you're getting these random apologies for things that you didn't even notice were taking place.
I think this 2020 was just genuinely about deconstructing these unconscious biases.